Welcome back, guys, to a new episode of this podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about something that literally is important for every single body out there. At least I hope, in a way, and that is relationships, romantic relationships with a partner. And yeah, we're going to go like a little bit deeper into the weeds here. We have no idea where this will lead us. I got some questions which are like a bit yeah, they're going to be funny to answer, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, Finn, where do you think insecurities in a relationship come from, and how do you think you can fix them?
So where do they come from? I think some part because of your childhood. So you have a bad relationship with your parents, for example, or you see your parents and they don't have a healthy relationship. So you kind of adopt the thinking that all relationships are like this. And then when you're older, you may have different insecurities about the people you're dating because you project your experiences from your childhood, from your parents, onto your own relationships.
Yeah.
So I think this is one factor for insecurities, and probably the biggest. But I also think that there are some things that come from your current environment and social media. So, for example, you have a relationship, everything works normal and fine, but then you see maybe a couple on the beach or on social media that may seem happier than you are. And so you start to think what's wrong with your relationship because you don't seem as happy as they seem.
Yeah.
And then you start building up insecurities. What is wrong? Do you do something wrong? And stuff like that. So I think these are the factors for insecurities, and pretty much how to work around them is to constantly work on them. If you have a partner, be open about these insecurities, and if they can accept it, if they think this is unattractive, then you're not really made for each other. And if she accepts this, then work on these insecurities, talk about them if you're feeling unwell in different situations because these insecurities spark something up in you, then talk about it, work on it with your partner, and I think that's the best way to get around this.
Yeah, it's like always the same thing. Name it to tame it, and then
Yes.
it's like that part where like the pressure builds up. Like when cooking, for example, you got like a pot, right? And the water pressure of the water area, I don't know what it's called in English right now, but if that like builds up, right, and that's like negative things, then you obviously want to like just release that pressure, open up that pot, right? I think it's the same thing here. If you just keep on nagging on those insecurities, not being open or honest about them, trying to work on them with your partner potentially, then yeah, what's going to happen is they're going to just build up and then potentially explode in like an emotional outbreak or something entirely different, which is not optimal, I would say, depending on how that outbreak looks. But I think there's a that way you can just avoid that by being honest and open.
Yes. And how open should you be, do you think?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think, to be completely honest, with all negative things, you want to be as open as humanly possible. Where the only things where you maybe just hide something from your partner or something along those lines is when it's something extremely positive. That, for example, if I don't know if that's hard to put into words or to find a concrete situation for this. But if it's something that doesn't harm them in any way, but instead like by them not knowing it, dude, that sounds like you're hiding something. I don't know. It's
But how do you mean positive? So if something positive happened, shouldn't you share this with the partner, or what do you exactly mean with don't be open about positive things?
Yeah, it's like this thing with maybe getting rich, for example, or like trying to be successful. It's like where if you try to talk about your visions too much, or if you actually do, then as we know in your brain, like dopamine is released and all those things, which actually make it less likely that you pursue your goals and achieve them. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
it that can be applied to relationships as well, where if, for example, with surprises, if you want to surprise them, or if you want to do specific things in the future, or if you imagine your future, your shared future in a specific way, then maybe don't only talk about it, because that may just again release those chemicals which make it less likely that you pursue that future in reality. But try to keep it to yourself and actively work towards that future. Like, it's just that if you talk about your partner in a sense of like, yeah, and we're gonna be open as fuck in our relationship, and it's going to be so awesome and blah blah, and then you both like create this vision, but at the end of the day, you don't talk, you don't actually are open to each other. Then I don't know. I don't know if you can like fully put that concept from like getting successful and everything into your relationships as well. But I feel like there's something like this.
So I don't know. I think your partner would be kind of an exception, since
Maybe, yeah.
it's one of the biggest supporters you probably have, and the same with visions. So what if your visions doesn't really co-align? Then wouldn't it be more beneficial for both of you to talk about them, and
Yeah.
maybe then know that you're not that you don't fit to each other?
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't talk about your visions and your goals, then you can find out if your visions both fit together.
Yeah, sure. It's more like I think what I thought more about, because like with the relationship I'm currently in, it's like I don't say certain things because I still want them to be like a surprise, maybe, or to still have like a sense of she's still figuring stuff out with me, and that's like positive stuff, right? If there's something negative, I would tell her, but it's more like there's more positive things to figure out, more good qualities to surprise her with, and then just not instantly telling her all those good qualities or whatever. It's like a process, maybe.
But how long should
Hard
this
to put words.
process last?
To be honest, I think you should surprise your partner and really put effort into them for the rest of your fucking life. So you and you also like just like with the relationship as a whole, the relationship and you evolve. Obviously, it's like there's stages in life, and so you constantly have to like reinvent yourself to the degree at least. And just by the nature of that, you will surprise your partner with like new features and everything. But it's like with surprise visits, for example, or surprise with things you never did before. Let's say you've never taken her on a surprise trip, then do that. I think stuff like this, there's so much to do that you can literally do this for the rest of your life. But I'm not sure if it's actually possible. As I said, as long as it's like positive qualities and positive thoughts. If it's something negative, then you most certainly don't want them to surprise them with something negative like that. That would be bad, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I get it all right. So, but I still can figure out the openness about some things and not openness, because I mean surprises and stuff like that's not being open or not being open. That's just you surprising your partner. That's obvious that you won't talk about this if it's a surprise.
Yeah,
And I mean, with character traits, obviously most people don't know enough about themselves to be able to talk about every trait you have. And there I see the part of evolving together and figuring each other out to see if you will fit together for the long run.
Yeah, it's like I have something in mind where it's like all the negative things, of course, be open about them, instantly tell them. But it's like if it's a positive thought and your partner not knowing this thought and therefore being better off, I don't know if there's a situation like this, but as long as it's not something negative, for example, like, yeah, I cheated on her, and so I'm not telling her because obviously she would be better off without knowing that, or the relationship would be better off. But if it's something positive, something like truly positive, and for some reason, like whatever that is, not knowing that she's better off, then why would you tell her? Like, I don't know if there's a situation like this. I can't think of any, but
so something you tell her which innately is positive, but makes her situation worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like. I don't know if it's possible, but yeah, that's what I kind of like thought about. Straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about emotions, when talking about openness, would you also say that you should be completely open about the emotions?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good start. I mean, for also just with as I said, as long as it's negative emotions, like it's obvious that you should tell them. But if it's and then you can like figure stuff out, right, on how to work on this, how to like solve this problem, whatever. If it's and then if it's like love or if it's like a positive emotion, then as well, like you can for sure tell her. I mean, people want to be loved in a way, so I think that would like benefit the relationship and not make it worse in any way. So I don't know. I can't think of any emotion that you shouldn't really tell.
And at what point should you show your emotions? Is it something you should start with when starting to date? So you're instantly showing your emotions and being open about them? Or is it something that progresses over time and you're showing more and more about these things and more talking about the negative ones?
You're talking more about negative emotions?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. I feel like there is a difference from beginning to the more you just go through life together, the deeper your bond, and the more you are actually like willing to maybe open up about certain things. So I think there's like a progression to it. I mean, I think it's just natural. Like in the beginning, to overwhelm your partner with like every single negative emotion you have is like, I don't know, do you really want to do that? I mean, if it's really threatening the relationship, then of course, like go ahead. But I don't know. I think there's like a natural progression to it, where in the beginning it's just a little bit more chill, and then you just deepen your bond, and more opens up over time. I think it's natural, but at the same time, you kind of like want to be compatible, like actually, and so the only way to figure this out maybe is to from the beginning on. If you like want to figure this out as soon as possible, then the solution is to be from the beginning as authentic in a way as possible, so that you instantly figure out, okay, this person is compatible to me or not. Like, yeah.
I think often there's this fear of showing these things, also kind of with the thought in mind that you aren't compatible and then you don't want to raise this relationship. But if you logically and rationally think about this, it makes more sense to show it, since you don't want a partner that isn't compatible with you when you're dating to marry, which in my opinion is the only logical reason to date. And then you should be open about them and figure out if you fit together or not. You should get over this fear of showing your true side, kinda.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like what I always think about is you want to make as much. Like, let's say you have 10,000 thoughts a day, okay? And then from those 10,000 thoughts, if you are working on something like purposeful, then you don't want your relationship to take up that much space. You want it to be like more of like a add-on, something that actually supports you and not something that you have to worry about in any sense. More like a supportive relationship than something that takes away precious time and precious thoughts of your day. Like, actually, you have to worry about the relationship. And so like in terms of achieving something in your life as well, it's like you want a relationship that adds there and that you don't have to worry about, because if you have to worry about it, there's like less thoughts being dedicated to your goal. And yeah, so of course you want to there should be a set number of like actions and thoughts and whatever on your day on a daily basis that you invest into your relationship, of course. But it shouldn't take up most of your mental space. Your relationship should be supportive and not dragging you down.
Yes. Do you think there can be a relationship where there are zero worries, or will there always be some kind of worries?
Oof, I mean, the dream would be zero worries, I think, but I don't know. Maybe the longer you progress and the safer you get in that relationship, you can actually get to a point where thoughts of doubt or worry are basically minimal. But I think it's like also in a sense you maybe have to distinguish between, okay, is it like a worry or is it like negative thoughts about the relationship itself? So are we that compatible? Will this last? Will we be fine as partners? Will our relationship work? Versus, okay, there's like worry about our kids, and then we have to together figure stuff out, or worry about maybe financial stuff about the house we're building. Like those kinds of worries and thoughts never go away, obviously. But I think worries about your relationship, you can get like very. I think you can actually reach a state over the course of years, maybe decades, where you don't worry about it at all for years. What do you think?
So I don't think that it's possible in the beginning.
Yeah.
And pretty much just like you explained, that this is something that develops over time. And if you have a healthy and happy marriage when you're maybe 80 or shit like this, then I think, or I can think about things that you're worrying about in your relationship with your partner when you're this long into marriage. But I don't think it's possible in the beginning stages of a relationship. I think there will always be worries. It's just how much, and can you get over this by talking about them?
Yeah. One question I always ask myself, and so I'm just gonna ask you, is to what extent, like, it's such a weird thing where how much should you actually sacrifice yourself up in a relationship? Because I think being 100% like fully authentic with like authenticity itself is like a weird thing. It's like, okay, is it being authentic if you're being rude because you just feel like being rude in this moment? So like there's always this kind of like you're always holding back a little bit of that just like primal in authentic side of you. And so I think defining authenticity is like weird in that sense. And then it's like, how much should you hold back of that side and do things you would actually not want to do on your own, but you know that your partner would enjoy them highly, and then so you just sacrifice yourself for your partner. Because I think there's value in that. I mean, if you on like a ground level are compatible and on a ground level you share the same visions, the same ideas, whatever it is, then you don't have to be like fully compatible all the fucking time. Like sometimes you gotta figure out something, or sometimes you gotta sacrifice yourself up for your partner if you really want to make things work out. it's like just a thing of how much do you have to sacrifice yourself, and is there a point where you say, okay, I can't do this anymore, and then 20 years into a relationship you actually have to say, yeah, we have to quit this,
So
which I think is horrible.
I think in a healthy relationship, it wouldn't even be a sacrifice. So let's say your partner is going to the club and you don't want this. So you tell her to not go. And your partner sacrifices going to the club because it makes you feel bad. And you're not feeling well because of this. And I think there can also be some kind of pleasure for your partner for being able to fulfill your needs. Or maybe something that fits more into this explanation is you're going to an amusement park, which your partner Lars, she always wanted to go there, and you're kind of mad about this, but you're happy to see her happy. And thus it's not really that much of a sacrifice for you. And I think that's what makes up a healthy relationship, that you or your partner can then again sacrifice some pleasure for them to be able to see you happy, which reverse makes them happy. I think talking about sacrificing is more talking about how much time will you spend. So if you have some work to do, if you're working on something, and then there's the question, would you sacrifice an hour of work on this project to do something with your partner? And whether this would be worth it or not. And I think there we should discern what or where this work leads to. So if you are working on your purpose, then I think you should focus on your purpose. But if it's some meaningless work, which you can easily do sometimes else, then I think you should sacrifice it. But for me, it would be the point, what kind of work is it? Is it purposeful work, or is it just some work you have to do?
I see. Do you think that in a healthy relationship, arguments are a necessity?
Yes. I think that there will never be, or I can't imagine a relationship where there are no arguments, since you are two individual people. You don't have the exact same brain and thought structures and stuff like that. And when you're so long into a relationship, maybe years or decades, then there are arguments you have to make. There are going to be some arguments between you two. And I don't think that this is something bad. It can also be something good. And it's not something you should avoid.
Yeah, I think so too. I think as well that in a healthy relationship that will last pretty long, you gotta have arguments. It's just natural. It's just natural. So if you don't have them, if you don't have arguments, maybe something is wrong. But it depends on the situation, obviously. Now, Finn, what for you personally is the biggest green and the biggest red flag when it comes to this?
The biggest green flag? I think it's extremely close between being loyal and being open. So...
But how do you measure loyalty? Like, people can't just say, yeah, I'm loyal, and then you're not automatically going to be like, yeah, that's a green flag. Like you have to assess loyalty based on their actions. And so what would be those actions that would
Mhm.
lead to say, yeah.
So first of all, for me, it would be to kind of let go of male friends.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of friends they are.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just know that these male friends want something from her, and
Yeah.
if they themselves don't see it and want to be friends with them, even though they know that you don't like this, and
Mm.
this is something I think shows some disloyalty to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing is, it kind of goes into being open, but just talking about what her plans is, what her plans are. I also think this is some kind of loyalty to you. And maybe just how she reacts in interactions with other dudes that want something from her. So if they go to her and ask her for a number, how she's going to react to this, or if she is in a club and someone wants something from her, how she's going to react then, and also from her past actions, how
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
was in past relationships.
For sure.
If she cheated before, then that's a pretty big no.
That's maybe even
And
the biggest red flag. I know.
even if she says that she's now loyal,
Yeah.
this is not something I can believe that much.
Yeah. Sure.
So I think these things show some kind of loyalty.
Yeah.
And about being open, I mean, it's the thing we said before. First of all, being able to show your partner what you think and creating this kind of environment to be open. So both of you can talk about everything.
Yeah.
And not being attacked or not feeling attacked by some things you say. So if you don't like something that she does, and she's feeling attacked by this, and can't understand you in some kind of sense, or you don't talk about it, and it's just some kind of gloomy atmosphere, and this is something I also think is not really being open and shows this also.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
you?
Interesting. Yeah, I think biggest red flag, as you said, is like May France is a pretty good one. That's like the first thing. I got maybe two more. One, past actions, especially like how she behaved in the relationships in the past, and how many relationships she actually had, or how many bodies. I think there is a correlation for sure. It's also it's literally been studied. So of course there's a relationship there. But so those two things, and then also if she says something that she clearly doesn't actually mean, so she's like basically lying to you. Depends on the
Oh
lie,
yeah.
obviously, but if it's like a yeah, if it's a impactful lie, like yeah, and you just notice it, it's like fuck no, it's a big fucking red flag. And then the green flags, it's openness, this like communication thing where if you say something that annoys you, she acts on it and doesn't like yeah whatever, as you said. And I think that's actually the biggest green flag. And then it's like basically the reverse of what I said with the red flags. So doesn't lie, is dishonest. Not many past, not that high of a body count. And past relationships, for example, if they were very long, and she was able to communicate problems in that relationship, which is something you can just ask her about. Then yeah, that's those are like very strong green flags.
Yeah, so I think not being open is one thing, but lying is just a no-go. I mean, even if it's not something impactful for you,
Yeah.
it's just a shitty behavior in a relationship to lie to your partner.
Completely.
So, how traditional do you think should a relationship be in our times?
What do you mean traditional?
Like in the 70s maybe. So there's the housewife that cares, looks after children, and then there's the man that works.
Yeah, that kind of traditional. I see. Well, I personally don't think that there's like a universal answer. I mean, you could potentially like look at studies and everything and then say, okay, people that live in more traditional marriages tend to be happier, and that may be the case. But I think humans are individual to such an extent that nowadays, like there's a lot of things that can work. But for myself, I kind of like decided that I personally think that most women don't like actually want to compete in this like working whatever it is, like actually just like they want to do the stuff that they actually like love to do. But I don't want my woman to be kind of like forced to bring some money in because I can't make enough on my own, and therefore she has to maybe do some shitty things that she doesn't want to actually do. And so in that way, maybe I think a bit more traditional. Then also with like kids, I think people with kids are happier. I genuinely think so. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a personal question, and yeah, you just have to ask yourself like, what's your preference? And I think I've decided the preference for myself. And also, one thing I want to add here as well is I don't want like my wife to necessarily do the cooking, do the dishes, or whatever. I want to be able to outsource that labor to like some workers. But yeah, I think I want a woman that like really loves raising kids. And so therefore it would not be her job. Like obviously I have that job as well, but she would spend more time with that than I do. Maybe that's the thing. But yeah, weird question. What do you think?
I think kind of the same. So I also think it's attractive for the woman to be at home and taking care of the children, and then you come back after work and she cooked something for you and you're getting greeted by them.
For sure.
It's something beautiful in my eyes, and I also can't imagine my wife working some shitty job to get the money into the bank because I can't get enough of it. So this is more a responsibility I see in myself to get the money to be able to buy the things we want, and then her responsibility is more with raising the children and staying at home. I mean, if there's something she likes, a hobby and stuff like that, then she can follow this hobby, and she's more happier with this than working in some shitty job.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that. I want to be able to finance my wife's business, which like loses $10,000 a month. Like that cafe dream that she has in a big city, where you're like, yeah, just do whatever you want. I got you. Like, that's cool. But,
that would be funny.
Yeah, that would be extremely fun. Do you have like any more questions or things you want to talk about?
Is marriage important?
Ooh. I can imagine that for some people a marriage just doesn't work. Like, to be completely honest, I think some people can be in a marriage or they truly don't want to be in a marriage. And then for those type of people, however big that percent is, I don't know. Fair enough, marriage may not be the thing. But I think marriage from a personal perspective can be something absolutely amazing if you got the right partner and if you have like a healthy relationship. I don't think sleeping around comes close to this. Like the level of just like deep relationship that you can, grow into, essentially, and the things you can do together. At the same time, from like a societal perspective, I also think that marriage is somehow important. Like I don't know like the specific stats or anything, but I know I remember seeing like podcasts on marriage, and which is what was talked about, where like the guy, he prayed and he was like a marriage expert, and he basically said he prays that marriage stays a thing because it basically keeps society together or something like this. And Ben Shapiro says something similar so often, and he has like very good points, but I don't know exactly what those points were, to be completely honest. But I just remember thinking like, yeah, okay, so marriage truly is something important. And so from a societal perspective, like, yeah, I think marriage is something important. From a personal perspective, I think it's individual, but I think most people would actually benefit from being married because it's awesome. And so, yeah. What do you think?
I just think it's something beautiful.
Yeah.
It's kind of the next step of being in the relationship, and it may only be something formal with changing the name and stuff like that, but it's still something so deep in our mind that we perceive it as something deeper than before. And
it is a change.
I think if you're long enough into a relationship and you truly think you belong together, then marry and make it final.
Yeah.
Yes. That's my thought on this.
Yeah, so you think marriage is important, basically?
Yes. But this would be pretty much it from my side.
Yeah, from mine as well. I think we went over a couple of different topics, which by itself could be a whole podcast if you really go deep into the weeds here. But nonetheless, I think interesting topics that, are important to think about as well. I mean, romantic relationships should be a staple in your life. Like they should be there. If you don't, then you're missing out on something. Honestly, like.
Yes.
And you can also like grow. Holy shit! Like the amount of like personal growth and the amount of like insights I got into myself since I've been together with a girl, bro. It's like night and day difference. Like you don't know yourself until you've been in a relationship, like at all. I feel like you all of a sudden see like a jealous side inside of you that you've not seen before. Where you've been like, yeah, I'm not jealous about that shit, and then all of a sudden you're in a relationship and you're like, holy fuck, that really hits me. It's like it's interesting, but yeah. What's the podcast? I think.